The closing years of the nonviolent civil rights movement in the early 1960s left many blacks disappointed with their position as a race in both government and society. The earlier movement did not seem to address the real problems troubling black communities. Feeling frustrated and dissatisfied, such sentiments led to the eventual changing of the movement's cause and methods, becoming more active and aggressive. Subsequent movements like Black Power and Black Nationalism and leaders like Stokely Carmichael and Malcolm X attempted a more militant, anti-white, isolationist approach to race relations, permeating a more radical message into the black community than that of previous activists like Martin Luther King Jr. and Medgar Evers.
I think with Martin Luther King coming along first, it almost said, we tried everything else. And now this is a logical outgrowth of that. You know, if we tried peaceful demonstrations and the hoses was turned on us, and we tried peaceful demonstrations and dogs were turned on, tried peaceful demonstrations and you were lynched. Of course, Selma and all that is coming out now in terms of the movies. So then you say, okay, so if I tried all this other stuff, what else do we try? Do we fight back?
However, the splitting of the civil rights movement into a more aggressive faction and one that advocated peaceful resistance left many blacks feeling alienated. In 1966, 2 years before the death of Martin Luther King, Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale founded the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in Oakland, California as students at Merritt College. Although originally intending to create a black nationalist party, they soon realized this was not the answer. As Huey P. later detailed, quote, "We called our party a black nationalist party. We called ourselves black nationalists because we thought nationhood was the answer. Shortly after that, we decided that what was really needed was revolutionary nationalism. That is, nationalism plus socialism. After analyzing conditions a little more, we found that it was impractical and even contradictory. The two decided to take a middle ground between the alienating ideologies, taking a more prominent and aggressive stance than the previous movement, focusing more on self-help, helping the black community. They carried shotguns, but they also carried law books. They outlined these goals in the 10-point plan, focusing on uplifting blacks in society. The organization was anti-oppression, not anti-white, contrary to popular belief. Their logo, a Black Panther crouched in a defensive position, was borrowed from Lowndes County Freedom Organization, a group that armed itself in attempts to represent blacks fairly in government, creating a political party for blacks outside of the entirely white Democratic Party. The Black Panther Party began with police patrols to protect fellow African Americans, but after seeing the dismal state of affairs in the urban communities of Black America, the Panthers expanded the party's reach to encompass social activism. The Black Panthers instituted many survival programs, as they were called by the Panthers, to further blacks in society, like their famous free breakfast program for children. Such programs, in addition to helping the community, also shed light on the lack of services provided by the government for blacks. This breakfast program was in fact so successful that the government, although against the Panthers, implemented one similar to it, Head Start, upon realizing that the Panther Party was feeding children ignored by the government. The Panthers even opened new clinics amidst a lack of medical care for many blacks living in the urban centers of America. It was called revolutionary intercommunalism by the Panthers, and these so-called socialist ideas were the bastion of the party's 10-point plan and subsequent mission statements. When the Black Panther Party expanded, it began to identify with other groups they felt were being oppressed, and allied itself with them, however controversial their platforms were. In 1971, the party visited China and met with the foreign minister, Zhou Enlai, identifying greatly with the nation in their similar pursuits for a better society by instituting social programs. The Panthers even aligned themselves with the Viet Cong, communist sympathizers in South Vietnam, and offered to send troops to the National Liberation Front. Algeria, the world center of anti-imperialism, granted the Black Panthers diplomatic status, and the Panthers based their international operations there under the heading of Eldridge Cleaver.
I think one of the things that the Black Panther Party did, incorrectly or correctly, depending on one's perspective, it was to try to identify with groups they saw as they thought as being oppressed, whether it would be the Vietnamese, whether it be people in different countries, whether it be Castro and Cuba, those type of things. Well, whenever you pick an ally, you also then pick an enemy.
The Panthers were forever changed by their foreign alliances, but as previously mentioned, the controversial groups that the Panthers aligned themselves with put them further at odds with the U.S. government, specifically its intelligence agencies. The FBI and NSA, with their counterintelligence programs, notably COINTELPRO, kept watch over the so-called threat to national security that J. Edgar Hoover labeled the party as. Further conflagration with local police forces ran rampant as well, and the Panthers were implicated in many shootouts which further hurt their reputation in white communities. The resulting deaths of important members in the party, like Fred Hampton, heightened hatred of police officers, labeled pigs, and created more entropy within the group. The police patrols that the Panthers ran, and actions taken, such as their mislabeled invasion into the California State Assembly, scared white Americans. This led to the public's misconceptions, directed by the police and the media, that the Panthers were a very violent and angry anti-white group, filled with invigorated African American young men ready to shoot and kill whites.
They claim they must carry guns for their own defense against racists. The armed band forced its way past surprised and bewildered state police to stride through the pass gates outside the...
However, the entirety of the organization comprised much more than that.
The government saw the Black Panthers as being a threat to the internal security of the country. And no one's ever really figured out exactly why J. Edgar Hoover felt that way, because here they were policing the community, they were feeding the kids, they were giving people dignity and respect, and somehow the government, at least J. Edgar Hoover at that point, felt that was threatening. So the government then decided to take actions to infiltrate the Black Panther Party, to try to destroy the Black Panther Party.
The group, immediately after its inception, faced adversity, and its demise always seemed to loom near. The FBI hired rival groups to sabotage the Panthers, and ran extensive counterintelligence programs like the aforementioned COINTELPRO against the Panthers, believing they were a threat to American society. However, their actions were highly illegal, and there is even evidence of the FBI and police inciting fear of the party in white communities. It is suspected that the FBI and other intelligence agencies had a hand in the downfall of the Black Panthers. Additionally, rifts created in the group led to the eventual fall. In 1971, a disagreement between Huey and Eldridge Cleaver about the nature of the party's political strategy led to the expulsion of Cleaver and the international chapter of the Black Panther Party.
In recent months, of course, the Newton wing expelled Eldridge Cleaver, who was living in Algeria, so that the SEAL Newton wing is nowadays supreme. Meanwhile, the Black Panthers have turned their backs officially on violence as a means of accomplishing whatever it is they propose to accomplish.
Confrontations between the two factions, often violent, led to the deaths of 4 members. The split caused hundreds of members to leave the party, and the Panthers closed their last office in 1982. Even though the Black Panther Party disbanded, its impact on black communities and on America itself is still felt today.
I think that they wasn't on the scene long enough to firmly establish what they wanted to do. But they left enough seeds that people start to see some of those types of things. When you begin to look at the legacy of the Black Panther Party, one of it was to say that here was a group that was willing to, quote, care for the black community. Here was a group that was willing to defend the black community. And that's where I think the legacy of the Black Panther Party was. These were young, impressionable kids who grew up in a time where they were fighting for civil rights. And this was just one of their responses. And I think what it really showed is that young people have a voice.
Its social survival programs live on through the same government that labeled the party as a threat and persecuted its cause and members, its ideology being preserved through its offshoots and sister organizations. Its legacy therefore lies not in what it achieved as a political party, but rather in its impact on other organizations and in its ability to give many blacks the logical succession from the peaceful civil rights movement. The Panther Party gave them a new identity and stronger resistance against oppression, a cause that expanded to encompass many groups of people.